Hi everybody, and Chris of the Polish Geek welcomes you to the review of The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I reviewed the first episode and I said it was very much off to a good start and I was very much hooked in, but now that the show is complete, or at least the first season of it, now that the first season of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is complete, was the rest of the season as delightful and engaging and interesting and well written as the first episode? And well, with a single word, I'm happy to say, yes, totally so. This show is a real breath of fresh air, and I was watching it and I had a really good time with it, and I was entertained with each episode through and through. And really, my only complaint with the show at this point is that the episodes are simply not long enough, and I just want more episodes already. And yes, if you feel that your major complaint actually is that the episodes aren't long enough and that there are just not enough of them and you just want more story already, then that's a perfect sign of very good writing. And yeah, because once again, I think we've all really not really been interested much in the world of Westeros after what a disaster Season 8 of Game of Thrones was. And while House of the Dragon, lots of fans, including me actually, were pleasantly surprised and ended up really enjoying it. With time, ultimately, I admittedly did lose interest by Season 2 with House of the Dragon. Yes, I did praise Season 1, but during Season 2, that's when I ultimately realized that as good as it is, it's just a depressing reminder of the glory days of Game of Thrones, because, again, it still was nowhere near as good as Game of Thrones Seasons 1 to 4. But A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, one of the major reasons it works, actually maybe the major reason it works, is that although it takes place in the world of Westeros, and this is very recognizably the world of Westeros we all know and love, but it's actually a very different type of the show. It's more like a classic fantasy as opposed to plenty of political scheming and all, which Game of Thrones was, and that's why it's a breath of fresh air. This is very much a classic fantasy that hasn't been around for quite a while, so understandably plenty of fantasy fans, including me, find it really appealing, and that's what we like so much about it. And again, it's not to say that the political scheming of Game of Thrones and all was bad of anything. After all, that's what vast majority of us were, why we all loved it and enjoyed it so much. But it doesn't change the fact that return to a classical form of fantasy is still a very nice change of pace, and that's one of the major reasons why A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms works so well, because the story is based on George R. R. Martin's spin-off novellas about Sir Duncan.
Sir Duncan the Tall. 4 pages for Sir Duncan. He must have been quite a man.
So they say.
And his Squire Egg, and it takes place 90 years before Game of Thrones events happen, and it's a very simple story about a simple young man who wants to be the knight, and then he goes on a journey to actually become a knight, and then he meets a young boy who offers to be his squire, and then they develop a strong bond, and their bond and friendship is actually among the best highlights of the whole show. And I really like the character of Sir Duncan the Tall, because he very much embodies the true qualities and virtues that a true knight should be. He's chivalrous, he's honorable, he stays true to his values and principles, like a true knight should be. And again, compared to both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, it's a very small scale story confined mostly to one single area, but that's actually among other reasons why the show works so well, because what nowadays writers forget is what the audiences want first and foremost is good writing and likable and engaging characters, and Knight of the Seven Kingdoms very much puts that forefront. Again, what its major focus is, once again, the character development, the relationship between the two characters, and just good writing and an engaging storyline. And that's one of the reasons why it works so well. Plus also, the visuals are really good and all that. I really love the landscapes in the show, even though, once again, it's a very small scale story confined to one single area in Westeros. The visuals are still really good, and I really like them. Another reason why A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms works so well, at least for me, is that although once again it is quite a different type from the story from Game of Thrones, because once again Game of Thrones was focusing on powerful families and royalty with plenty of political intriguing, and it was kind of deconstructing some classical fantasy tropes, while A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms fully embraces them, but at the same time A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms also doesn't actually forget its roots, and that it's still very much a story set in Westeros, and there are plenty of the things you still very much expect in a story set in Westeros, such as it's still bloody, violent and gory, and there are some disturbing violent deaths in the show, as well as some really evil and vile villains that you very much want to see suffer, such as Targaryen Prince Aerion, as well as the leader of the City Watch, who in the backstory harasses Sir Duncan and his girlfriend. So yeah, well, even though, once again, it's a much more classic heroic fantasy in contrast to Game of Thrones, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms still very much knows the world it's set in, and well, it very much knows what type of a story it wants to tell and very much tells it, but it also very much remembers that the world it is set in and fully commits to it. And the show clearly just knows what it wants to be, and that's another reason why it works so well. And another thing I really liked is the battle between Sir Duncan and Prince Aerion and several other knights in their company in the trial by combat. And what I liked about it is that it wasn't actually focusing on the spectacle and all, and it was actually focusing more on the gritty realism of what dueling actually was like, because you're fighting in the rain, in the mud, and instead of actually giving the audiences a spectacular battle to watch, they're actually showing the struggles of the knights, which certainly makes the battle again far less visually spectacular, but at the same time, on the other hand, it actually makes it more realistic and actually represents what actual fights in medieval times were like. So that's another thing I very much welcomed in that show. I guess the one minor nitpick I have with the show, and I didn't see many people addressing it, is that admittedly some of the castings did feel kinda out of place actually, but admittedly we live in the modern days, so those type of castings of some minor characters like Crowley is something you have to look past, and the more you think about it, the more you think it's no big deal anyway, because we all know that in the world of Westeros there is also another continent, a continent of Essos, so it's entirely possible that people of Essos came to Westeros, and actually living as simple folk in such places would actually be the place where folks from Essos would live anyway, so I guess that's ultimately not really a flaw. Once again, it does make sense that several people of Essos would also be there, so ultimately it's no big deal. But overall, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, I'm happy to say, gets my approval. It's a really good show and a really huge breath of fresh air in the modern days, and I'm very much now anticipating Season 2, which once again is a sign of really good writing when your major complaint is that episodes aren't long enough and that there just aren't that many of them. But at the same time, I gotta be honest, we should also not be getting ahead of ourselves. Like, I gotta remind everyone that we've all been really excited about The Mandalorian, and we've all very much praised the hell out of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and now at this point, after Season 3, no one cares about The Mandalorian anymore, but so yes, the first season of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is great, and so far I'm very much anticipating Season 2, but once again I just gotta remind everyone, yes, we all want the show to keep quality, no doubt about it, but it's only the first season, so unfortunately it's not far-fetched that it's gonna decline in quality these days, because this is the type of times we live in. Let's hope that the show will only keep quality, but so far all we can do is wait for Season 2 and hope. But so far, I'm once again very happy to say A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is a great show, a nice return to the world of Westeros, and so far I'm very much engaged. And I can't wait for Season 2, and hopefully it keeps quality. So thank you folks for checking out the review of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Press the like button. please subscribe this channel, and I'll talk to you in a week and a half, because yes, I'm going away now for skiing with my sister, niece and nephew, so yeah, I'll talk to you in a week and a half when I get back. Talk to you then, bye.